Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're cracking open a really fascinating theological dossier. We're going to unpack a text that makes a massive argument for the eternal, cosmic authority of Jesus Christ. And we aren't just talking about a historical figure here, but a being who, according to the text, existed before time itself even started. So if you've ever wondered exactly how early theological texts built up the identity of this eternal priest-king, you are absolutely in the right place.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at 1. The Ancient of Days, 2. The Son of Man, 3. The Great I Am, 4. Creator and Sustainer, 5. The Eternal becomes flesh, and finally, 6. The Final Verdict. Let's get into it. Section 1. The Ancient of Days.
So, the source kicks off its case, but surprisingly, not with Jesus' earthly life in Bethlehem. Instead, it lays down a foundation in eternity, using this really mysterious Old Testament vision. According to the text, the prophet Daniel gets a glimpse of a throne room that exists completely beyond time. He describes this wild scene where earthly human rulers and entire kingdoms rise, fall, and literally have their thrones thrown down. But think about the sheer scale here. Right in the middle of all this historical chaos, this one figure, the Ancient of Days, remains permanently, unshakably seated. The imagery is intense, too. We're talking garments as white as snow and a throne like a fiery flame, really driving home this idea of absolute purity and just overwhelming power. Now, the crucial point the author makes here is all about the actual nature of this figure's power. You know, unlike human kings who just inherit their thrones from whoever came before them or lose them to the next guy in line, the Ancient of Days has authority that is entirely his own. This eternal figure doesn't just hold temporary, fleeting power. His dominion is absolute. And according to the dossier, it never, ever expires. It's basically the absolute bedrock of eternal governance.
Moving on to Section 2. The Son of Man.
Okay, so next, the source outlines how this eternal dominion we just talked about is actually handed over to a specific figure in Daniel's ongoing vision. Daniel sees someone described as one like the Son of Man, coming right up to the Ancient of Days with the clouds of heaven. And the text highlights a massive shift here. This Son of Man receives a universal, completely indestructible kingdom. It's a dominion set up so that absolutely all peoples, nations, and languages serve him. So it completely supersedes any earthly nation or localized power structure you could ever imagine. And here is where it gets really interesting. The text points over to the Gospel of Matthew to show that Jesus explicitly claimed this exact, highly specific title and the authority that comes with it for himself during his earthly trial. When he was standing there facing the religious leaders, Jesus didn't just say he was a wise teacher. No, he claimed the absolute cosmic authority of Daniel's Son of Man. I mean, it was a total mic drop moment. By doing this, the source argues, Jesus was actively claiming the throne, the kingdom, and eternal rule. He was positioning himself as the eternal king that was prophesied centuries earlier.
Which brings us to Section 3. The Great I Am.
Now, you really have to notice the profound theological and linguistic nuance the author points out here in John chapter 8. When speaking to the religious leaders about the patriarch Abraham, Jesus says, "Before Abraham was, I am." The dossier draws a really sharp contrast here. Think about it. If Jesus had just said, "Before Abraham was, I was," he would have merely been claiming pre-existence, right? Just stating, "Hey, I'm older than Abraham." But by saying, "I am," the text argues he was claiming to exist entirely outside the bounds of time itself. It's kind of a mind-bending concept. Time is defined by him, not the other way around.
To back this up, the text argues that by using the present tense, I am, Jesus was intentionally and unmistakably echoing the divine name revealed to Moses at the burning bush in Exodus. Remember when Moses asked for God's name? The response was, "I am that I am." The author's point is that Jesus wasn't just using some confusing grammar. In that specific historical context, claiming this divine identity was considered absolute blasphemy. It was a capital offense. He was actively claiming the very identity of the eternal God, and he was fully aware of the consequences. Let's look at Section 4. Creator and Sustainer. So now the author's dossier zooms out dramatically. We're moving from intimate conversations in Jerusalem to literally the physics of the cosmos itself. The source insists that this priest-king cannot simply be a product of the universe. To rule creation, he actually has to transcend it. Pointing right to John 1:3, the text argues that nothing created Christ. The stars didn't produce him, the universe didn't generate him. Instead, he is the architect who actively spoke creation into existence.
Building on that foundation, the text claims that Christ's rule didn't just end the moment creation was finished. Pointing to the book of Colossians, the dossier argues that he actively sustains it right now. The text highlights that everything, visible and invisible, in heaven and on earth, was created by him. But even more importantly for this specific argument, it says that by him all things consist. Let's look really closely at that specific word, consist. The author emphasizes that this translates to holding together. This isn't just some poetic metaphor. The text is arguing a literal point of cosmic physics. The very existence of our galaxies, the orbit of the planets, the continuation of biological life, they all remain intact solely because this eternal king actively holds them together. The universe, according to this dossier, is not some independent machine running on its own. It is entirely dependent on him, from millisecond to millisecond.
Section 5. The eternal becomes flesh. This brings us to the profound paradox of the incarnation. Here we have the Ancient of Days, the literal sustainer of galaxies, stepping directly into the dirt and grit of human history. Drawing on John 1:14, the source highlights the moment the Word was made flesh. The Eternal One actually localized himself, dwelling right among the very creatures he actively breathed into existence.
The author uses these beautiful rhythmic contrasts here to really drive home the sheer magnitude of this event. The Creator entered creation. The King became a servant. The High Priest became the sacrifice. The source argues that the Eternal One stepped into time not because he lacked glory or because he needed to consolidate power. Not at all. It was entirely for the purpose of human redemption. It's a complete inversion of how earthly power typically operates.
Finally, Section 6, the final verdict.
We have finally reached the climax of the source's investigative dossier, where all these complex theological threads are tied together to render a final verdict. The text draws a stark, final contrast. Before Christ could be the ultimate priest or king, he had to possess rightful, innate authority. On the left side, we see borrowed authority. This is how human systems work. A ruler inherits a throne or receives their existence from whoever came before them. But on the right, we see what the dossier claims for Christ: possessed authority. His kinship is absolute precisely because he does not borrow authority, he just possesses it. He doesn't receive existence, he gives it. He doesn't inherit eternity, he is eternal.
Summarizing the evidence, the source presents this clear 4-point investigative finding. 1. The Ancient of Days is eternal. 2. He is the creator of all things. 3. He possesses an everlasting dominion that will never be destroyed. And 4. This ancient, cosmic figure is directly revealed in the historical person of Jesus Christ. The text concludes that the priest-king is not merely some ruler within the universe fighting for territory. He is the one who made the universe, he sustains it, and ultimately, he will inherit it.
And the author leaves us with this final, provocative challenge. The source argues that the evidence has already answered the big question of whether Christ has authority. The cosmos itself, according to the text, is proof of that. So the ultimate question the dossier poses isn't about his credentials at all. It's about your reaction. Will you willingly submit to the Ancient of Days? Whether you view this as theology or philosophy, it is a truly fascinating look at how ancient texts frame cosmic authority. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.